What's one of your favorite things about Lady Midnight that you hope people, will enjoy, or one of your favorite characters, or anything about the book?
I think that Mortal Instruments was a lot about sort of finding your family in the world. Like, it was a lot about having, making bonds with people that you didn't previously know, and coming to love them and care about them, and having them become your family. Yeah. And this is a story that's a lot more about a family that is related. And so to me, I hope that, one of the fun things about writing it, and one of the things I hope people will relate to, is these people are your family. You didn't pick them, but this is who they are, and you love them, and you will always have their back. But they're going to annoy you sometimes, and they're going to drive you crazy sometimes. And how do you work with the overwhelming love that you have for your family and the times they drive you crazy? Since
your book is based in Los Angeles, was there anything that you incorporated from the actual city?
There's a lot of stuff that's incorporated. Growing up, I didn't live that far from the Santa Monica Pier, so I incorporated the Santa Monica Pier in. Do you know what Angel's Flight is? So it's the beginning of a railway that they started in downtown LA, and they never finished it. So it's just like this much railway, and it goes like that, and you can ride it like up to the top and back down. And for whatever reason, it's called Angel's Flight. And it dates from the 1920s or whatever. So I incorporated that in because it's called Angel's Flight. So, right, how could I not?
Totally makes sense.
And there's a lot of the beach and the ocean, because I grew up not that far from the beach, and I always loved it. So a lot of Malibu and the sort of caves that are far up the coast.
Where did you get your title inspiration, Lady Midnight?
Lady Midnight is the title of one of my favorite songs by Leonard Cohen, and I always thought it was a beautiful song, and so I always wondered, who is Lady Midnight, because it's not really addressed, and so this is sort of a way of my answering the question, who is Lady Midnight?
You got to visit the Shadowhunters set. What was one of your favorite parts about that visit?
I had an amazing time visiting the Shadowhunters set, and it was really, the best thing for me was to meet the actors in person. I'd seen them on screen, I'd watched their auditions, but to actually, get to meet them and get to know them, there's this fondness you have as a writer when you meet someone who's portraying a character of yours, and it feels like a bond. I would see them, and then they would run up to hug me, and I would run to hug them, and it was like we had met each other before, and that was really nice. But also, I think being inside the Institute, inside the sets, is a really interesting experience, because of course you're well, this is a thing that I invented, and I created, and now it's, these very talented technicians have made it into a real thing that I can go inside and walk around, and that's a really phenomenally strange but exciting experience.
Let's say somebody has been tuning into Shadowhunters on TV, and they think, I want to explore this world more, but maybe they're feeling overwhelmed, or they don't know where to start. Obviously there's a series that you have written, but what would you recommend?
I would recommend that they start with City of Bones. They're going to recognize the most sort of things from Shadowhunters, the TV show, in that series. So I'd say start with City of Bones and read the sequels first, and then you can decide whether you want to go, at this point you can decide whether you want to go forward in time and read the Dark Artifices, or back in time and read the prequels, which are set in Victorian England.
What's something that you hope your fans take away from you and the Shadowhunters world?
I think one of the things about the Shadowhunters world is that it's, from the beginning, been sort of moving in the direction of an overall arc that kind of is hinted at in every single book and is kind of carried forward, which is that there are the Shadowhunters, and then there's their government, the Clave. And at first they're very distant figures, and we don't know much about them, and then slowly over time we sort of get to know more, and we find out that they're not a corrupt people, but they do sort of follow a lot of rules and laws that are kind of bad. And so I think for me, every generation of these Shadowhunters, these kids in these books, come to understand that there are these rules and they're supposed to follow these rules, but what do you do if you think the rule is bad? What happens when the laws that you're supposed to follow are immoral, and how do you make your own moral choices? And I feel like if there's anything that I want people to come away with, it's the idea that, you make your own moral choices. The idea is free will, right? You make your own choices, and you're responsible for whether they turn out well or whether they turn out badly.
What are you working on next? What's something we can look forward to?
I'm working on 2 books right now at the same time. So the sequel to Lady Midnight, which is called Lord of Shadows, and picks up the story and continues it from the end. And then I'm also working on Chain of Gold, which is the first book in the Last Hour series, which is a sequel to The Infernal Devices. So it takes place in 1903.